very demeaning to see a head teacher being frog-marched when the pupils are looking. How do you expect the head teacher to manage those boys and girls later?
We want to thank the TSC CEO Nancy Macharia for what she did, transferring from Isongo Secondary School, where our teachers are attacked.
We are appealing to everybody to ensure that the teachers are given their respect. If there are issues, we have the boards of management.
Kuna viongozi wengine wa haya mashule wanaenda kule wanamwambia mzazi ati pesa ya serikali haijafika, wewe lipa. Sasa msikie kutoka kwangu, hawa watu watawachana na hiyo tabia mbaya ya kuuliza wazazi walipe pesa na ili hali serikali imetoa pesa.
Rais William Samoei Ruto apatiwe wakati. Ni mwaka mmoja tangu ashike ustani na tunaona mafuta yamerudi chini.
Change is not easy. It is not instant. Change, economic changes, social changes, they take time.
Excellency, hawa watu ni watu wako sasa, sio kama wakati ile ingine. Hata siku hizi wanasiasa wakikuja hapa, hakuna mtu anakutusi, hata kutaja jina yako.
Really want our media to be responsible. You don't want media to spread unnecessary and irresponsible propaganda.
Tumshikeni baba. Tumshikeni baba. Tumshikeni baba.
Sisi kama Wajaluo kutoka Nyanza tumeamua kufanya kazi za serikali juu hapo tunaona kama haki yetu iko. Wale Wajaluo wenye bado wanafuata Raila wanataka kumtumia kupata vitu zao.
Watu wanatumika na kugawanywa kiholela holela. Lakini sisi tunasema kama wana ODM, wana Azimio, we are firm and of the belief that we are behind Raila Amolo Odinga.
Huyu gavana wenyu ni gavana kama magavana wengine wote. Kama rais anaanguka na ndege kwa boma ya Orengo na hakuna mtu anazomea Orengo, kwa nini Otuoma azomewe na mtu yeyote? Si huyu ni gavana apewe heshima.
Safari ya kesho upangwa leo. Na safari ya 2027 lazima tujipange, tuwe wanachama wa chungwa, ndiposa tutakuwa na nguvu tuweze kumtoa yule anayetudhalilisha.
Tuna huzuni, watoto wetu wanauliwa kule kwa majumba zinaitwa sijui what A and B whatever they are.
Perpetrators wengi wanaodhulumu hawa wasichana ni vijana. Wanawakatakata, wengine wanadungwa kisu, wengine wananyongana. Jamani, tunakemea hiyo kabisa.
We need to respect our women. We need to respect life.
Morality hatuwezi legislate, but mambo ya hizo mushrooming hospitality industries tunaweza legislate na tuone sheria imewekwa kali, watoto wetu wasichana wasiuliwe ovyo ovyo.
Wasichana wangu tafadhali, don't ride on men's back ambao wanakupa tu. Wewe you just demand. Udemand, just know after hizo demands unazozifanya na ukipewa utakuja kulipa na maisha yako. Ndio hayo tunakuonya kuanzia sasa hivi.
Umesikia wanasema wanataka kufanya leasing ya Nzoia kwa miaka 50. Mimi nataka kuambia wale watu wanataka kuuza kampuni ya Nzoia haitawezekana kama sisi tuko Bungoma.
Na sasa wameanza kutumia mambo ya housing ili wanyakue mashamba. Hapa Bungoma wako wana target uwanja ndege ati wanataka wafanye affordable housing hapa.
We shall operate at zero tolerance to corruption. Therefore we have no room and space for fraudsters, especially where our officers are likely to be involved.
Kutumia ufunguo wa housing levy, affordable housing. Anataka kunyakua ile shamba la prison huko Kitale. Hapa ekari nyingi za Nzoia wanasema mambo ya leasing, lakini mpango wao wanataka wanyakue hiyo ardhi ya Nzoia.
All right, just to remind you that, of course, we have also members of parliament who are going about the country right now in 19 counties to seek, of course, your views regarding the housing levy. This, they say, what the publications that we've read so far say this is against also what the court had determined regarding that particular move of a housing levy. We will be discussing that just momentarily with our panelists. All in court with the Senior Counsel, Dr. Otenda Molo. And also we have with us Senator of Makueni, This is Dan Manzo and also Eden Kanan. Eagerly waiting to be joined, but it seems maybe it slept through the alarm. Kimani Wamatinga was supposed to be here as well. Wahoma Wamatinga, should say, was supposed to be here, the area senator, so that we can continue to get also his perspective of the Mount Kenya politics, but he's a no-show so far. But we continue pace with the conversations. All right, we just wanted to wind up on the discussion of the judiciary and the executive so that we can gravitate also to the issues of Azimio and the party politics of Jubilee, Mount Kenya and UDA. And I wanted just to get your comment, Dan Manzo, briefly, or even Otieno Molo, if you have anything regarding as we're closing that particular chapter. What is the way forward?
Well, the Constitution...
So this is it, will not have any other hits from the executive and the judiciary, will not have all this drama again?
Well, I don't think much has been settled. The Constitution is very clear how each one of these bodies work, how Parliament functions, how the executive functions, and how judiciary functions. And I think we are yet to see more of drama now that very little was sorted out other than a few vehicles to judiciary, which was already budgeted. And I think we have to get serious with the fight of corruption. There is EACC. You know, you need to strengthen institutions. Whatever happens in, you know, the courts prosecute and the courts hear cases. But when very little evidence has been presented, you leave a judge with no option but to acquit somebody who has acquired millions of shillings from Kenyan coffers. And I think the issue of corruption has to be addressed seriously. And without a strong judiciary, without a strong investigative bodies, it will be a waste of time. But in your soapbox, you know, in the news, and in the newspapers, you can see the issue of Rita Waiani. She comes from Makueni County, and I really want to, you know, condole with this family as a senator from Makueni, and also go on to say that this is a heinous crime. Again, it will go back to judiciary. It will go back to investigators. You can see these suspects have come to the country without paperwork. You remember the other day the president was opening doors to everybody into the country. And again also online, you see online business, you can see this lady met these people online. It's really a caution to many young people that first of all, there's nothing for free. And secondly, it's not good to trust people entirely online. And when you have to meet a stranger, I think it's good to be accompanied by somebody else. And more important on this you know, industry whereby you have private houses or hotels, it's good to have, you know, CCTV cameras as mandatory by law. That happens in many other countries, including Rwanda, which is in Africa. That is a serious requirement before you have any hotel or any place people are likely to visit, that you have CCTV, because it helps, you know, monitor and make sure that people are secure. I believe this should be the last case of this heinous crime. You know, she was cut into different body parts. The information I got yesterday is that now the head which was missing has been found, and it's really sad for this particular family and many other families in Kenya. I wish and think that this should be the last case. We are going to lose a young life. Part of the work of the government is to protect lives of Kenyans. If we go on with things like this, and these people get away with it, then it means we have this problem for a long time. So I think it's a high time it came to a stop. Right. It's a personal responsibility from young people, but as well as the government responsibility to make sure that they are secure. Right.
Dr. Chinemondo,
you know, for that meeting, there's the facade and then there's the real reason. The facade was the talk of dealing with corruption. The real intention was to try and browbeat the judiciary not to issue orders affecting government policies. That's the real reason. In both, the meeting was a spectacular failure because the meeting did nothing and could do nothing to advance the fight against corruption. It did not involve any of the relevant organs. It did not make any disclosure that the president kept saying he had, you know, this big brief. One would have thought that he would be told that he handed over some, you know, some real dossier to the CJ to transmit to JSC. You know, nothing like that happened. In terms of the control of the judiciary, it was still a spectacular failure because the CJ and DCJ cannot control even a magistrate in terms of what orders to issue or not to issue. So the meeting did not advance anything except to try and show that the judiciary is subservient to the executive. That's why it was not necessary in the first place. I have seen part of what you've captured there, which is very important, and we need to talk about this. It's even in the papers. We still have almost 280,000 students who are yet to report to Form 1. And I saw the president commenting that, there are leaders who are misleading the public, that the government has not released money. That's a very important subject to discuss. The truth is, the government should have released monies. For example, for us, for CDF, even Honorable Kenan here will tell you, we are on the 3rd quarter. We should have received all the monies we require for CDF. So far, the only money that has been released to date, and it's only because we made noise, as Honorable Kenan was telling you, is a paltry 30 million shillings, which is not even the amount we need for bursaries alone. Forget about other developmental needs. Since 1st of July last year, in my constituency alone, I require 45 million for bursaries. They have released 30 million. So now we are trying to balance out and see how we can manage that to include the university, the colleges, the continuing students, and even the Form 1s who came in. It's not an easy task. The capitation monies, I think, was only released, and it's only part of it to schools, I think, last week. And yet, the whole of last year, the president kept promising that they will release capitation monies to schools in time. So when then the president, castigates other leaders who are telling parents to pay, it is not fair on those leaders, because those leaders are also stuck like we are. We need the entire bursary money so that we can issue it. We need the schools to receive capitation monies, because we are harming these children. We are causing them to stagnate in terms of their learning curve. Lastly, the story which Senator Manzo just commented on, of people, especially ladies, being killed in Airbnbs, is a very disturbing story. I don't understand why it is only in Kenya that this, incidences of killing of young ladies especially has risen to such high levels, and yet Airbnbs are everywhere. I think somebody should do a study to really understand what's happening. Is it possible that there's also some element of frustration? Is it possible that our security arrangement in terms of Airbnbs is so loose-ended that anyone thinks that they can just get away with murder like that? Therefore, I support measures that are aimed at controlling the Airbnb in terms of identification. I think that all Airbnbs should also have cameras, so that at least you can know who is using what Airbnb. They should also be required to have some registration. At a time when this government has made it possible for anyone to walk into this country visa-free, and now you're starting to see all sorts of foreigners walking in and killing people in Airbnbs. We're in a very delicate situation, and it must be controlled.
So we have the resumption of Parliament next month on the 13th. Will there also be an issue that maybe you can put on the floor of the House to discuss this, because so that we can have proper regulation?
That is something to think about. I've been racking my mind in terms of how best do we deal with this idea of Airbnbs. Traditionally, our laws were geared towards traditional hotels. An hotel must be registered, it must be inspected, and anyone who checks in, the details must be taken and all. But this Airbnb, I think, took all of us conceptually, by surprise. So there is no clear regulatory scheme for Airbnbs, and perhaps now that's what we must think about.
But why should it be so different with Airbnb? Because we have also Uber that is extremely, sufficient in terms of getting your information, the driver, the details of the registration of the car. The same should be applicable to this particular application or the app, as we're saying. I don't know.
Let me start with one of the judiciary, because that's a very important. This other one is a very important one. I want to come to it.
The issue of the judiciary.
Let me start with the issue of Airbnb and this sad realities that so many of our gullible, actually let me say our girls are being abused and being killed. It is very unfortunate. I sympathize with what happened to Rita and many other innocent ladies in our country. And I think it's the high time that the government takes a decisive action on the perpetrators of this, so the criminal elements, whether they're business-minded or whether they're driven by hate, whether they're driven by other religious consideration, that dealt with in accordance with the law, because it's so heartbreaking to see the lives of innocent actual individuals, particular girls, just coming to an end abruptly like that. I think one of the things that I have proposed, I've looked at, seeing this, I know whether you saw my post, I've looked at the laws, and I think there's a lacuna under the Hotels and Restaurant Act. This is something that I think we can capture so that we amend and come up with the seamless procedures that will regulate how MPs, first of all, how they are registered, how they are used, so that any person who wants to invest in that particular business, because investing is allowed, people creating wealth is also allowed, but I think we should be very careful on how we go about this so that the regulations and everything else is actually captured under the hotel. I've looked at every other law. I think that's the only way we can have that aspect captured, and therefore I've drafted, the first draft is ready, and I hope and pray that by the time Parliament comes back, we'll have something for public debate so that this issue comes to an end, and we even have an implementable approach that the government actually, and the government and the security agencies actually can use in dealing with this. But it's very sad, and I really empathize with the people of Makueni and many other communities who have had their loved ones actually.
What's the title of your draft?
It's an amendment to.
It's an amendment.
It's an amendment to the Hotels and Restaurant Act.
Okay.
Yeah, an amendment so that that particular aspect is captured. It's the beginning. I'm sure a number of progressive ideas actually will come out to the fore when we subject it actually to pre-publication scrutiny and public participation, so that these issues are addressed once and for all. So that's the best that we can do. But I want to also appeal to the security agencies to be vigilant and deal with these criminal elements decisively, because we are a country that is governed and appreciates rule of law. And I think that's the only thing that we've inherited as the most important, the most fundamental thing that unites us. So once there is a breakdown of the rule of law, then you can imagine what will happen. There will be anarchy. And that is not a good episode I really want to see in Kenya, because Kenya has been having peace, and that is what we want to see continue and being applied in every part of the Republic of Kenya.
Have you received also your monies as well? There's a 30 billion shillings that Otende is alluding to also come to your constituency?
I'm told that allocation has been sent, but I think they are yet to send.
Did you receive the first tranche?
I'm told last week they sent, and therefore we're waiting for the details. It's not enough. It's not enough for the entire budget allocation, but it is a good beginning. But we must also realize that we are going through a very serious economic crunch. And you have heard what happened to Ethiopia the other day. They defaulted. And the Ethiopian birr actually has had a beating. The fact that we are honoring our international obligation allows, if you go to some of the neighboring countries, their shillings or their currencies, you have to look for a wheelbarrow in order to carry something equivalent to $100. I hope we don't go that route, because if the government actually is very careless in what they are doing, and theirs was just to create monies or mint monies that cannot be accommodated by the economic growth, then we'll have been serious crisis. The fact that they are honoring our international obligations, regardless of how it was done, whether it was done under the Grand Coalition, or regardless of whether it was done under the handshake government or whatever, at least they are honoring our international commitment. That places us somewhere. It's something that we should be international. It's something that we should be very proud of as a country, as Kenya. And I want to say kudos to the president for honoring, and the government for honoring that bit. The other bit is now management and using the available resources. And I think it's something that we really need to understand. I will leave it there. The other bit is coming to the meeting. I think, first of all, we have a country. We have different institutions managed by different individuals under the ambit of our current constitution. The fact that the CJ and our team dissected and looked at the challenges the judiciary is facing, the need for a fair administrative justice system, the fact that the head of the executive, the president, has raised issues, the fact that there were issues, and all of them are tailor-made, actually, in dealing with issues that are affecting the lives of the people of Kenya. I want to thank the CJ and our team for thinking out of the box, for being very progressive, for being bold and decisive, for refusing to listen to the usual choruses. And they will always be there. I can tell you, my friend Mwanzo is a lawyer, my friend here, Dr. Malo, if you ask them outside this room, they will hardly agree on any legal issue. Because that's the diversity of their legal thought. But I think thinking, coming together, and the president providing the platform and the leadership, it's something that this country requires. Because consultative approach, accommodating each other, is what this country requires. That antagonistic approach has never worked. You require the judiciary as much as you require the executive. You require the legislature as much as you require and this is why the interdependence role of this institution actually cannot be overemphasized. So what I want to say is this, and we have been around, the fact that the leadership, the current leadership, has decided to think out of the box and expand the horizon of thinking and say, look, we need to accommodate everybody without infringing on the basic mandate of different institutions, is a welcome thing. And that's, we should wait for what comes out from this. Let me correct something that has been overemphasized here. I don't think whether it's the president who proposed the recruitment of additional Court of Appeal judges or High Court judges. No. You need to understand the way that is done. What they may have discussed is funding for the actualization of what already the law provides.
I think that was clarified by the senior counsel.
Yes. So I think that should also come out. But on the face of it, we shouldn't be antagonistic. We need a consultative approach.
Thank you.
And that is what Kenya actually requires. Otherwise, if each institution decided to function on its own, then we won't have a country.
All right, and I think we've given it a considerable stock.
Yes, but as we close,
attention, yes.
Dibal, the only thing that we needed to hear from the president is an apology to the nation for threatening to disobey court orders and a withdrawal of those statements. That is the only meaningful thing that should come from the president on that subject. Yes.
And so this is a whole exercise, and the melodramatic postures that we saw were all exercise in futility.
Nowhere in the statement that was issued is there any apology by the president or an undertaking to respect court orders. That makes the whole meeting vain.
All right. I want us just now to discuss the issue of a National Cohesion and Integration Commission, because I think from the National Dialogue Committee, we have a latest development there that is going to affect the civil servants as we know it. Given what we've heard also from the Public Service Commission regarding the way this government is constituted in terms of ethnicity, we have, and I'll try and rip up that particular tabulation that we had from, I think, one of the publications on how majority of one ethnic or two ethnic communities are taking the lion's share of government jobs, parastatals, following damning audits or audits exposing the extent of ethnic discrimination in public sector employment that has seen a few tribes dominate government jobs. A new bill seeks to further reduce the statutory quota for a dominant community in an agency. If enacted, it could lead to restructuring of state agencies and possible job losses. This story is on page 7 of the Daily Nation this morning. We can begin from there with Dan Manzo, first of all, because we've had these people talking about it. National Cohesion Commission has come up with an audit. The Public Service Commission also finally last week also had the same list. And now we had the National Dialogue Committee also picked up this particular issue regarding the ethnicity in the face of Kenya. What would be your sentiment?
Well, you see, there's a proposed law on public service so that you could have a balance in the country. Unfortunately, the imbalance has gone on for many, many years, and it goes on to the politics. You see, whoever forms government first wants to hire people, close to him so that so that he strengthens his government. And this does not only happen in Kenya, it's happening in many other parts of Africa, especially other than Tanzania, where the president for quite some time now has been coming from minority. But in Kenya, it has been two regions since independence, either the Rift or Central Kenya. And what has tended to happen over the years, you see, when like currently, if you look at the permanent secretaries and the ministers, you can see largely is drawn from a certain region. So whether you make a new law or not, there is a practice by those hiring. And in fact, a lot of times the hiring in Kenya, the advertisement and the interviews are cosmetic. You already know who you want to hire. If it's at the county government level, if at the national government level, you've already colluded. But for the sake of the public, you purport to be advertising, and the people will be shortlisted, and then after shortlisting, you proceed to an interview which you know the answers, or which is guided, and even where the markings, people have instructions to rate a certain candidate higher, so that they get hired into government. But most important is if you are going to grow an economy, are you going to really, civil service cannot hire everybody. And in fact, no one is known to have grown rich through a salary. There has to be a 24-hour business for somebody to be able to be successful to a certain level. So I believe other than this, the most important thing is to have structures in the country, to have a favorable economy, whereby investors can be grown locally and internationally so that they can do business here, hire more people, and that will go a long way into sorting out this issue, other than everybody believing the only place you can get a job is either with the county government or national government. They cannot hire all the youths we have in the country. And unfortunately, that's where Kenya has failed. We have increased the cost of power, so production becomes difficult. A lot of prospective people who would have done business here have moved to Tanzania or Rwanda. And then we have this push of people trying to work for the civil service, because the private sector is no longer hiring as it used to be. So that goes into the core of organizing a government so that the cost of living is stabilized so that investors can come to our country. So when you make cost of power high and you make cost of fuel very high and refuse to lower it even when the international prices have lowered, and then you just do a cosmetic one, a little one, just to show people we have reduced the cost of fuel, the reality is we are losing, in long term, we are losing investors who can come and invest in our country so that we can stop this push and rush to everybody in government, of which whether you make a bill or not is a sham. It's a political movement which is not even controlled by any law. And I have had an experience, having been in government and now having served as a member of parliament for many years. Even those who are brought to the house, it is the same story. So we need to come up with a way of making sure that you balance to all ethnicities in the country, and you can even have a certain formula. Although it cannot be achieved immediately, it is something we need to work on so that all of us belong to Kenya, all of us pay taxes to Kenya, and all of us will be served equally to Kenya. But unfortunately, that is not the case. Out of the so many 40-something tribes, very few people are benefiting. And even my friend Kainania, who comes from minority, has to do a very big fight through all the sectors to make sure that
let me correct you. We are no longer a minority. That was a myth. That was a myth. We are no longer a minority. In fact, you'll be surprised statistically. In the next 10 or 15 years, we'll be the third or the fourth largest community in Kenya. So you need to recycle your mind and remove that the Somalis are a minority anymore.
Yeah, looking at this, we are actually at 2 million. 700 and
even that was suppressed.
This was suppressed.
But in this list you are missing. In this list you are missing.
No.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. We are no longer a minority. We refuse to be called a minority.
No, me, I'm happy if you say that you are no longer a minority, and I agree. But what I'm finding interesting is Kenan promising us that in 2 or 3 years there will be number 3 or 4. I don't know what magic they will do.
There will be a fair census.
Unless the others who are ahead will be dying in
we refuse.
Or you're promising to to double the number of women who are married and therefore the number of children or something, because I don't understand the logic of how you pass this.
Yes, the logic.
But logically, I think he's on to something.
That's what I'm urging him to disclose fully. How?
Canaan has maybe 4 or 5 wives.
No, that is not
even
even with those 4 or 5, they are still at 2.7. So I don't know what will bring it.
He says this 2.7 is suppressed.
So
this is
he can't have 4 or 5. I think. By
the law allows for a maximum of 4.
Only 4, yes.
4 maximum at any given time.
Yes.
But that is not the issue. you remember we contested the outcome of the 2019 census, and we are in court. We are in court.
You're in court still.
We are in court still. Because the numbers in northern Kenya were all cooked actually.
Were alarming.
Were all cooked from Arambe House. Those were not the numbers.
Anyway, I know
so we have
finish.
We have gone to court to get our actual numbers. The numbers against our actually the numbers that we have been told is representative is not our numbers.
It's not 2 million.
It's not. It's not. And the court will prove those numbers were actually generated from OP, where somebody had an interest. Somebody was scared about the presence of the Somali community. They imagine economic strength, their numbers, and say, no, we need to control them. That's why a very good lawyer here. And I'm glad that you have headed that important...
So you're saying somebody is scared about the presidency of the Somali community?
No, somebody is scared about the numbers. You know, all along, we have been branded stereotypes that that is gone. Gone. Now that's gone. So we are here to play our role as first, equal, isn't it, among other communities. And therefore, when we will have a fair census in 2029, under the leadership of President Ruto, the correct number of that community actually will come out. As I said, you'll be surprised in 10, 15 years. So we wait for that fair census. We have never had a fair one.
So, that will be a very good constituent to think about. Even Farah says, you know, we should be preparing for a Somali presidency in the near future.
In fact, right now, I'll tell you, Nairobi governor, watch this space. I wouldn't tell you whether it will be 2027 or 2032. And it's not a privilege.
Speaking for myself.
We play our role effectively as citizens, loyal citizens of the Republic of Kenya. Without fear, without favor, without seeking
Speaking for myself,
from anybody. And I'm glad that my friend here knows that we are up to the task.
Okay.
Speaking for myself, I will not comment on the census and its outcome. But I will take home what Honorable Kenan says, the promise to become number 2 or 3. And it appears to me that perhaps Honorable Kenan, I think, he's the only threat to his promise is that the high cost of living. I don't know if you can manage to have so many children. and the way
no, we are survivors. We are cable hunters. We are survivors.
But Bribal, commenting on this, personally, I am not impressed by a bill such as this that seeks to increase the threshold, to lower the threshold from 30 to 20%. Why? Because even the 30% that has been the law since 2008 is never complied with. You have seen, whenever there's any publication of the statistics, many government institutions still do not observe that. So even if you cannot even observe the 30%, what's the point of reducing it to 20% and you still will not observe it? The problem is the culture that we have accepted is a culture of benefiting only our own, as Manzo was saying. And unfortunately, while many people have practiced that culture quietly, we now have a regime that practices and says that culture. That is a regime led by the deputy president who says that they will only employ shareholders, those who voted for them. And those who voted for them are definitely predominantly from the president's and the deputy president's ethnicity. Now, if a deputy president can voice such a thing and continue repeating it, what do you think will happen to all those other more junior civil servants who are employing people? They then believe that it is okay to employ your own because they are your shareholders. That's the problem we have. The second problem is this, which we will not even see on the face of such statistics. It's not just a question of numbers, it's a question of what position. You will find in many of these government institutions, the top tier management are just from one ethnicity. Then you bring some sweepers and cleaners, from other tribes to try and balance out the numbers. Then you say, these ones are, 5% or 10% or 15%, but they are not in the top tier, in the decision-making, cadres. So that also becomes a problem, that even where they bring some numbers is salutary, merely to say that it's not only this particular tribe, there are also others. So what we need to change is this culture to address equality and equity in terms of placement, of public positions. That's what we need to focus on. Otherwise, just playing around with the numbers is salutary and it will achieve nothing.
All right. There's no Kamba there.
I think the Kambas are to be eliminated.
You're a threatened species.
They have disappeared. or the Somalis have swallowed them.
No. Even there, these numbers we are disadvantaged.
Yeah, Honorable Kenan, I would love, since this matter has been in court, for how long has it been in court? The one that you're seeking to defend your numbers?
Since the announcement by the census.
2019?
Yes. Yes.
Where is it at right now? Is there any determination? From your own assessment, then, what is the actual population, or maybe just give us a ballpark figure from what we have at 2.7?
I think they did something called moderation in OP that particular time. And actually, the whole census actually was politicized. Let me not delve into it because it is in court. Let's see the outcome. But I can tell you what the numbers that were said actually are coming from northern Kenya is not the actual numbers. Let me leave it there. Let's come to this. The BAL, we have a country which is a collection of many nation states. If you look at the actions of every leader, whether in the head of a political party or the head of a ministry of this, is laden with tribalism. That is why in our own thinking, we came up with a law called the Fair Administrative Action Act to moderate this. But even there is still abused. So chronism, tribalism, regionalism is everywhere. It's not something that we can say is a phenomenon for a particular group. Look at the party leadership. Look at the party leadership. I'll tell you what happened in Azimio. Because sometimes when you pinpoint mistakes of other people, you should start it from yourself. You know I'm a ranking member. The Honorable Badi was also a ranking member, but nominated. And just like our good friends here. By the time we were elected, there was a special committee, special place reserved for Badi. Simply because you know where he comes from. Kainan, who comes from a different community, was even senior to Badi, did not even feature anywhere in the location. So when, and that's just a manifestation of tribalism, regionalism at every level, whether it's a political party, whether it's a ministry, whether it's a particular department. That is true. I agree entirely with what Honorable Otieno Amolo had said. But I think right now the challenges that we're facing are phenomenal on this, and it must be addressed decisively so that every appointment, public appointment, actually reflects the face of Kenya. How this is supposed to be done, and I think there are missed opportunities. Transition to devolved unit actually was not managed well by the public service at that particular time. That transition is like, we have a county government, and it's like they were starting something completely new without any regard actually to the existing public service rules and norms. Equally, the national government, but I think there are two things. Generally, our politics is driven by regionalism and tribalism, and therefore, even the core support of a particular party or group is normally either based on region or tribe. In other jurisdictions, take for example America, we have two major competing parties, the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. When one leaves power, the other one comes with its own people, qualified, without tribe, without region, but ideologically linked. That is what we need to inculcate in our country, because as long as the voting pattern is tribal, as long as the voting pattern is regional, as long as everything that we do is from a clans or a tribe or regional point of view, then whoever comes to power, whether you are an office messenger, whether you are a chief, whether you are a DO, whether you are an MP, whatever you do has to reflect that aspect. How do we get out of it? It's through the law. We have this law. In fact, we do not even need this amendment. We only need to comply with this particular law, the Fair Administrative Action Act, and you know how it came about. It came about as a result of the actions and the activities of the Grand Coalition towards the tail end. When we realized, when we did a bit of summative review of the activities of the Grand Coalition government, we just realized that we were clapping for just 2 communities. That is the time when we came up with this.
Right.
So let us implement both the letter and the spirit of this particular law. Of course, the National Cohesion Commission has every right to come up with this, but I think we already have a law, and that law itself, if properly applied and everybody appreciates, I think we can lead to the reduction of abuse of
But
office.
let's not mislead the viewers. The Fair Administrative Action Act was not as a result of any action of the Grand Coalition or whatever the circumstances. That act was as a consequence of Article 47 of the Constitution, which talks of fair administrative action. And the Constitution required Parliament to enact Fair Administrative Action Act. I was actually the Ombudsman at the time, and we drafted the law that is currently the Fair Administrative Action, and that was way back. We drafted it from the year 2012 to the year 2014, 2013, 2014, and it was enacted much earlier. Secondly, it is not fair for Honorable Kenan to say that John Mbadi was made chair of the Public Accounts Committee because of where he's coming from. That is not fair, and because it is not true. John Mbadi was the minority leader in Parliament. When, therefore, Opiyo Wandayi was proposed as minority leader in Parliament, it makes sense to at least allow John Mbadi an alternative seat. So they actually essentially swapped, because Opiyo Wandayi was previously the chair of the Public Accounts Committee. So they swapped with Mbadi for a position which is actually lesser. The minority leader is a higher position than a Public Accounts Committee. I was one of those who intended to vie to be elected the chair of Public Accounts Committee. But I stepped down first because Mbadi has been in Parliament longer. And secondly, I thought it was fair that if he was foregoing a higher position, it is fair that he chairs that position. Honorable Kenan is complaining, and yet immediately they were elected, they took off. How do you expect? How do you expect to be given any position? He intended to run away with it the way Sabina Cheke ran away with our position. We would have made that mistake twice. So at least in this case, we managed not to get there. But where he went, what did they give him? Nothing.
No.
We need to know what's happening here.
No. You see, look at this. Look at this. We had a collision. Agwambo took care of his treatments. Kalonzo took care of his treatments. The people who didn't have a senior leader in that particular coalition were left out. I was the PSU commissioner. Why was I not given an alternative? Kalonzo took care of his people. Raila took care of his treatments. Wandayi and those who are, compliant with his ideological thought, he took care of his treatments. Wandayi. And I'm saying this on camera.
Is Junaid Mohammed
just
also belonging to the same tribe?
Of course, he comes from that particular region. In every aspect, by practice, by orientation.
Kenan is disowning one of his own.
He gave you leverage, actually. He gave you leverage. He's not who brought one.
He's not one of the 2.7.
No, in fact, ODM should be very proud of Junaid Mohammed and what he did, of his resilience, but equally, very capable, highly dynamic, very intelligent, very aggressive, and he almost made ODM actually clinch the presidency, but they lost it because of the usual. But the point I was trying to emphasize, look at the level of tribalism. You are alluding to the fact that we really wanted to take care of the senior leaders. So Raila took care of his 2 tribemates, Opiyo Wandayi and the Honorable Mbadi. I'm saying this on camera, and I even told Raila on the face. It's not something that I'm saying this. Kalonzo took care of his tribemates. Who took care of the other people? So tribalism is endemic. It's all over. And the parties, and I'll say this because I've seen what happened under Moi government. I've seen what happened under Kibaki government. I've seen under Uhuru government. All these governments I've seen. Tribalism. Let's start from yourself. Raila, start tribalism with yourself. Kalonzo, start tribalism with yourself. Kenan, start tribalism with yourself. If we do that, we'll be in a position to point out the mistakes of other people. But here we are. We only comment about it when it doesn't suit us. When it suits us, we avoid it. That's why I'm saying, and I keep on challenging. I keep on telling even Raila that you mismanaged. And everything that you did was totally out of order.
Thank you.
And it's something that I will continue to say as long as I live.
Right.
And even the way we are mistreated.
Right. Even as winding up on the issue of that particular bill, so does it also portend the dissolving of the National Cohesion and Integration Commission? Because I saw they wanted to collapse it and put it under the National Gender and Equality Commission. Otieno Moli, if you're privy to that.
Well,
maybe you can clarify.
First, the proposal so far, as I've read it, does not involve the dissolution of the commission. And by the way, it is important for viewers to know that the NCIC, National Cohesion and Integration Commission, is not a constitutional commission.
It's a statutory
commission. Yes. And to that extent, therefore, the proposal here is to change the percentage from 30%, I think it's section 7. The threshold right now is 30%, that you must not employ more than 30% from the same ethnic group. They are proposing to reduce it to 20%. The proposal to merge is different. That is a result of the bipartisan talks. The report proposes to merge the National Gender and Equality Commission with the Kenya Human Rights Commission into one. But inevitably, as per Article 255 of the Constitution, any proposal to create another commission or merge some commissions must involve a referendum. So if we are to get there, then we would be facing a referendum in respect of that issue. As well as the other proposal to create, I think it's the Health Commission, which was also proposed. Those are referendum issues. But that's separate from this particular discussion.
But since NCAC is a statutory commission, that can be resolved.
That can be resolved very easily.
But it cannot be absorbed.
The proposal here is not to dissolve it.
It's not to dissolve.
It's just to change the percentage in terms of employment.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. You want to say something before?
I think I entirely agree with him. Being a statutory commission, actually, it's easy to dissolve. But I think this sort of gender...
It goes for a referendum.
It's a constitutional commission.
All right, let's gravitate and turn the crack to matters cost of living right now, where 73% of Kenyans are in severe financial and other economic crisis, a trend attributed to increased prices of consumer goods and services as a result of numerous levies by the government. This is according to the latest polls released by Infratrack Research and Consulting, which indicates that Kenyans have been forced to use coping mechanisms such as borrowing and engaging in side hustles to boost their disposable income. The report further shows that the youths are the most affected at 52%, followed by individuals at the age bracket of 55 and above.
A majority, that is 73% of Kenyans, are either in severe economic situation currently or are struggling to make ends meet. So that is the key takeout that we found out as number one, that a majority of the 73% are either in financial distress or are really struggling to make ends meet. And of course, we can see also to cope with, they've devised several means or ways just to cope with the financial situation. One of them include getting side hustles or getting double employment. So there are those that are now working daytime, you're working at night, or you're doing something beside what you're employed to do. If it's a side hustle, that can only bring a coin, an extra coin to your pocket so that you can cope with the situation. Well,
the current state of play of economy, not feeling, of course, that particular optimism of the government of the growth of the economy as far as the GDP is concerned. Dan Mazo, that is the reality on the ground. How are you scrapping by yourself?
Well,
maybe it's good to also give examples from the legislators. They can tell us how maybe if at all you've had another notch on your belt to tighten it.
It's actually very difficult for legislators because when we were getting elected, it was very tough. There was a drought in the country and people were very hungry. And, luckily, there has been rains, and I can assure you, at least from my county, the neighboring counties, people have worked very hard. They are expecting a bumper harvest, and I believe they will take care of the food. So one of the hustling we have done is to plant more mangoes and more citrus fruits, in Ukambani. We are doing very well with the pixies and so I've seen farmers really work hard. And the good news right now is that we have a lot of trucks, cool trucks coming to buy mangoes from our community for processing and for export. And I think that has helped. But that doesn't sort out the matter permanently. The whole matter of economic crisis begins with how the government is being managed. And you can see, if you look at the country generally, because this good season, and we are very grateful to God, there were rains all over the country, it's soon going to go away. What structures do we have which can run permanently? Kenyan economy is agricultural based. We should be doing irrigation. There are no proper plans to irrigate the country. And even where there was, so that you can produce food massively. And even where we were thinking of dams. Even a big project like Dwake Dam is slowed down completely by Treasury. The Minister of Water will do their level best. They will send all the recommendations and all the requirements to Treasury. Treasury will not release funds immediately, so you slow down everything. The few people who had, day jobs there, doing casual laborers, they are no longer paid, they are delayed, and that kills the spirit of the nation. So I think the government has to do something very serious in terms of making sure that the economy peaks. And it is very simple economics. First and foremost, if you increase the cost of living, then you kill small businesses. If you think you are going to get more money from fuel, then many more people no longer use fuel. Where you were to use a tractor, you end up using the oxen. Where you are to use a boda, somebody ends up walking. So somebody who had invested in a boda ends up being idle the whole day and doesn't make money. And that's why you see that high percentage of many young people jobless in the country. This is not what the current government promised. The current government promised, 100 days, everything will be working. But the country seems to have sunk and sunk and sunk. And I think something has to be done so that, cost of living can be reduced so that small businesses can thrive, SMEs, more taxes will be paid, and the government will be rich. But the moment we don't get it right in terms of the cost of fuel, cost of production, in terms of electricity, and it cannot be explained to anyone, then I think the country is on a wrong direction, and science, InfoTrack, have proved that, and I think it's a high time we all started thinking on reviving the economy of the country.
Right, we want to take a short break, and we know the shilling has hit that 160 mark, but also looking at what we have in the dailies today, if my director may just pick up this as we take a short break. Consumers feel pinch as shilling sinks towards 170 against the dollar. Local currency continues to depreciate despite government's effort to stem the slide. Cost of living burden increases as importers of goods are paying more for supplies. So what it does really mean that is you're going to be affected. I know most of you also are experiencing the beep, 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 beep of the tokens, right? And sometimes you just want to smash it because just the other day, maybe you uploaded 1,000 shillings or 2,000 shillings or 500 shillings on it, but still it's beeping. That's the current state of play. But we are coming back to you, as we can see here, so with the SHIF, and this is you, the Kenyan, emaciated, as you can see there. SLA, we haven't met our collection target yet. Taxes, and more taxes. We'll take a short break.